Remember Owen and Ka? From a rainy Atlanta night, they turned ashes into hope with Healthbridge. But today, we're ditching Midtown for the gritty stretch of I-20 where Rico Jackson, a chef who once ruled the kitchen, is broke and frying eggs in a dive. Then Lena Carter, a fearless reporter, crashes into his life like a new storm. No penthouses or AI empires here, just a knife, a pen, and a secret that could torch this city again. Ready. This one's hotter than Rico's skillet. The air in Mama D's diner was thick with grease and desperation, the kind that clung to your skin like a second shirt on a muggy Atlanta afternoon. It was a Tuesday in late September 2025, and Rico Jackson stood behind the counter, a hulking figure in a stained apron, his dark skin glistening with sweat. The sizzle of eggs on the griddle was the only sound, cutting through the hum of a busted AC unit rattling in the corner. Outside, the sky was bruising up fast, gray clouds rolling in over the I-20 like they were ready to drop a reckoning. Inside, Rico's world was already falling apart. He flipped a spatula in one hand, the other fumbling with his phone, squinting at a text that had just buzzed in. $500 by Friday, or we're coming for the diner, Jackson. Tick-tock. His jaw tightened, teeth grinding so hard you could have heard it over the hiss of the grease. The diner wasn't much. A rusted trailer-turned-eatery parked off the highway, its neon sign flickering Mama D's with a half-dead E that buzzed like a dying fly. But it was his last lifeline, the only thing keeping him from sleeping in his beat-up Chevy out back. 3 years ago, he'd been king of Atlanta's food scene, plating up soul food so good it had rappers and Falcons players lining up at Soul Fire in Midtown. Now, he was flipping $2 eggs for truckers and hustlers, a ghost of the man who'd once held a James Beard Award. The bell above the door jangled, sharp and sudden, snapping Rico out of his spiral. He didn't look up, probably just another regular, some grizzled dude wanting coffee blacker than the asphalt outside. But then, a voice cut through the haze, loud and brassy, like it owned the damn place. Rico Jackson, you're the guy who made that honey-glazed chicken that had Drake tweeting, right? What the hell you doing hiding in this grease pit? Rico's head jerked up, spatula freezing mid-flip. Standing in the doorway was a woman, small but fierce, maybe 5'3" in soggy Converse that squeaked on the linoleum. Her curly hair was a wild mess, plastered to her face from the rain that just started hammering the roof. She wore a denim jacket over a white shirt gone see-through from the wet, a camera slung around her neck, and a smirk that said she wasn't here to play nice. The handful of customers, 2 truckers nursing coffee and an old lady counting scratch-offs, turned to stare, forks paused halfway to their mouths. "Who the hell are you?" Rico growled, slamming the spatula down on the counter. The egg in the pan was toast now, edges curling black, smoke curling up like a warning. He wiped his hands on his apron, stepping out from behind the grill, his 6'2" frame towering over her. "And who said you could just waltz in here yelling my name like that?" She didn't flinch, just shook her head, sending water droplets flying, and stepped closer, boots leaving little puddles behind. "Name's Lena Carter, freelance reporter. Grew up 5 blocks from here in West End, so don't try that tough guy act with me. I've seen worse." She yanked the camera up, snapping a quick shot of him before he could blink. "I'm here 'cause I've been digging into your story, Rico. Soulfire goes up in flames, you disappear, and now you're flipping eggs in a dump that smells like burnt dreams. That's front-page material, man. Rico's chest tightened, a hot flush creeping up his neck. He snatched the spatula back up, pointing it at her like a weapon. You got 5 seconds to get out of my diner before I call the cops. I don't need some nosy chick with a camera stirring up my life. Lena laughed, a short, sharp bark that bounced off the peeling walls. Call 'em. I bet they'd love to hear about the $20K you owe half the loan sharks in this city, or how you're dodging taxes on this rat hole. She dropped her bag on a stool, pulling out a beat-up notebook, flipping it open with a flick of her wrist. I know more about you than your mama does, Rico. And I'm not here to bury you. I'm here to dig you out. The old lady at the counter, Miss Pearl, with her wiry gray hair and a stack of losing lottery tickets, cackled. She got you good, boy. Better listen up. Rico shot her a glare, but his hands were shaking now, the spatula clattering back onto the counter. He leaned forward, voice dropping low, rough as gravel. You don't know shit about me, lady. That fire took everything. My restaurant, my name, my damn soul. I'm not some comeback story for your little blog. Lena didn't back down. She leaned in too, close enough that he could smell the rain on her jacket, her brown eyes locking onto his, like she could see straight through the bullshit. Maybe not, but I think that fire wasn't an accident. And I think you know it too. She tapped her notebook, where a name was scrawled in red ink. Darius King. Ever heard of him? Big shot real estate guy. Word is, he's been torching properties all over Atlanta to scoop up land cheap. Your spot in Midtown? Prime target. Rico froze, the name hitting him like a punch to the gut. Darius King. He'd met the guy once, slick suit, gold chain, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Came into Soulfire a week before the fire, talking big about investment opportunities. Rico had brushed him off, too busy perfecting his cornbread recipe to play ball. Next thing he knew, his life was ash. You're crazy, he muttered, but it came out weak, like he didn't believe it himself. He turned back to the grill, scraping at the burnt egg, trying to bury the memory. I don't got time for this. Lena slid onto a stool, crossing her arms, her voice softening just a notch. Look, Rico, I get it. You're beat down, pissed off, probably haven't slept right in years. But I'm not here to screw you over. I'm chasing a story. A big one. Darius King's dirty as hell, and I think he burned you out to build his empire. Help me prove it, and I'll write you back into the spotlight. The chef who fought back. People love that shit. He snorted, tossing the ruined egg into the trash. And what's in it for you, huh? Pulitzer? A fat check? She grinned, leaning back. Maybe. Or maybe I just hate assholes who think they can step on folks like us and walk away clean. West End raised me too, Rico. I know what it's like to lose everything. The diner went quiet, save for the rain drumming harder on the tin roof, a steady thump-thump that matched the pulse in Rico's temples. He looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't some polished reporter in heels and a blazer. Her sneakers were scuffed, her nails chipped, and that fire in her eyes? It wasn't fake. She was hungry, just like he'd been once. Say I buy this, he said finally, voice low, testing her. What's your plan? You gonna waltz up to Darius King and ask him if he torched my life? Lena's grin widened, sharp and dangerous. Not quite. I need you to cook, Rico. One meal, your best damn meal. Something so good he can't say no. There's a charity gig in Buckhead next month. Darius will be there, schmoozing with the rich folks. You get him eating, I get him talking. I've got a recorder small enough to hide in my bra. We nail him, you get your life back, and I get my headline. Rico stared at her, the absurdity of it sinking in. You want me to cook my way out of this mess? Lady, you're nuts. Maybe, she said, hopping off the stool, slinging her bag over her shoulder. But you're the guy who turned collard greens into gold. You're nuts too. Think about it. I'll be back tomorrow. She tossed a crumpled 5 on the counter for the coffee she hadn't even ordered, and strode out into the rain, leaving wet footprints and a buzzing in Rico's head. He sank onto a stool, the diner spinning around him. Miss Pearl chuckled again, scratching at her tickets. That girl's trouble, Rico. Good kind of trouble. Yeah, he muttered, staring at the door. That's what I'm afraid of. Outside, the storm roared on, lightning cracking the sky over Atlanta like it was laughing at him. Inside, Rico's mind was racing. Darius King. A fire that wasn't an accident. A crazy reporter with a plan. He didn't know if Lena Carter was his ticket out or his next disaster. But for the first time in years, something flickered in his chest. Not hope, not yet. Just a spark. And damn if it didn't feel good. The rain had let up by the time Rico locked up Mama D's diner a week later, but the air still hung heavy, sticky with that late September humidity that made Atlanta feel like a skillet left on low. He'd spent 7 restless nights tossing on the lumpy cot in the diner's back room, Lena Carter's words burning a hole in his brain. Darius King. A fire that wasn't an accident. Cook your way out. Crazy as it sounded, he couldn't shake it. The spark she'd lit wasn't hope. Not yet. But it was something close. Hunger, maybe. The kind that had driven him to turn scraps into gold back when he was a nobody from Decatur. So when Lena strutted back into the diner that Monday, her Converse still scuffed, but her grin sharper than ever, Rico didn't kick her out. He just leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and muttered, "All right, reporter girl, you got one shot. Tell me this damn plan again." She plopped onto a stool, slapping her notebook down like it was a winning poker hand. "Told you, charity gig in Buckhead, 3 weeks from now. Feed the future, some fancy fundraiser for kids or whatever. Darius King's a VIP, loves showing off his philanthropy to the suits. You cook something so good he can't resist. I get close. We catch him slipping. Simple." Rico snorted, wiping grease off his hands with a rag that had seen better days. Simple. You ever met a guy like Darius? He's a shark, not some foodie I can woo with fried chicken. Lena leaned in, eyes glinting like she'd already won. That's why it's gotta be your A-game, Rico. Not diner slop, soul fire Rico. The guy who had Michelin critics crying into their napkins. Darius loves flash, and you're gonna blind him with it. He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. Soul fire Rico. That version of him felt like a stranger now. Cocky, sharp, untouchable. Could he even pull that off anymore? He rubbed the back of his neck where a tension knot was already blooming. And what if he smells a rat? Guy like that doesn't just slip 'cause I hand him a plate. That's my job, Lena shot back, tapping her chest. I'll work the room, play the eager reporter. He's vain as hell, loves talking about himself. I've got a recorder smaller than a pack of gum. One good quote, and we've got him. Rico shook his head, half laughing despite himself. You're nuts. You know that? Straight up West End wild. Takes one to know one, she said, winking as she slid off the stool. Meet me at Roots and Beans tomorrow, 2 p.m. We'll hash it out. Bring your chef brain. I'm not eating burnt eggs for this. She was gone before he could argue, the bell jangling behind her. Rico stood there, the diner quiet, except for the hum of the fridge. He didn't know if he was signing up for redemption or a bigger fall, but damn if her fire wasn't contagious. Roots and Beans was a different world from the diner, a low brick joint tucked into West End's heart, where the air smelled like roasted coffee and cinnamon, and a slow jazz tune drifted from an old speaker behind the counter. The place was small, scratched-up wooden tables crowded with locals sipping from chipped mugs, a chalkboard menu smudged with specials like Mama's Mocha, $3. Rico pushed through the door, the Black Hawk's cap he'd worn since his broke days pulled low over his eyes. He felt out of place, a big guy in a faded hoodie dwarfing the mismatched chairs. But when he spotted Lena at a corner table, scribbling in her notebook, he relaxed a little. She waved him over, grinning like they were old pals. "Thought you'd chicken out," she said, shoving a steaming cup his way. "Black, no sugar. Figured you're too tough for cream." He slid into the seat across from her, taking the coffee with a grunt. "I'm here, ain't I? Let's get this over with." As she flipped her notebook open, pages crammed with scribbles and post-its. "Okay, chef. The gig's got a tasting menu. 5 courses, small plates, rich folks pretending they care about poor kids. You're on as a guest chef. I pulled some strings with a contact at the AJC, told him it's a comeback story. They bought it." Rico raised an eyebrow, sipping the coffee. It was strong, bitter, better than the stale brew he choked down at the diner. "You're telling me they're just gonna let me waltz into Buckhead with a spatula?" "Yep," she said, popping a piece of cornbread from a plate between them. "You're still a name, Rico. Burnt out or not, people remember Soulfire. Now what's the dish? Something to hook Darius." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling where a fan spun lazily. His mind drifted to the old days. Soulfire's kitchen buzzing, the sizzle of butter hitting cast iron, the way the room went quiet when he plated his signature. "Honey-glazed fried chicken," he said finally, voice low, like he was pulling it from a grave. "Crispy, spicy, with a kick of cayenne. Collards braised in smoked turkey stock on the side. Simple, but it hits like a freight train." Lena's eyes lit up, pen scratching fast. "That's it. Sexy, soulful. Darius won't know what hit him." "You got the gear for it?" "Nah," he admitted, rubbing his jaw. "Diner's got a griddle and a deep fryer, but I'd need a real kitchen. Cast iron, decent knives, fresh stuff, not the canned crap I've been using." She smirked, sliding the cornbread his way. "Figured. I know a guy, runs a catering spot off Peachtree, owes me a favor. You're in." Rico took the cornbread, breaking off a piece. It was crumbly, buttery, damn near perfect. "You've got this all worked out, huh?" "West End hustle, baby," she said, leaning back. "We don't wait for chances. We make 'em." 3 weeks flew by in a blur of prep and nerves. The night of the feed, the future gig, Rico stood in a borrowed kitchen at the Buckhead Marriott, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked. The space was a chef's dream, gleaming stainless steel, gas burners that roared like engines, a walk-in fridge stocked with fresh greens and plump chicken thighs. He'd spent days testing the glaze, honey, cayenne, a whisper of bourbon, until it was sharp enough to cut through the noise in his head. Now, it was go time. The ballroom buzzed with Atlanta's elite, suits and sequins, champagne flutes clinking, fake laughs bouncing off the chandeliers. Rico plated from a corner station, his hands moving on autopilot. Golden chicken nestled against a pile of collards, steam curling up like a promise. Lena worked the crowd in a borrowed black dress, her recorder tucked into a clutch, chatting up donors with a smile that didn't match the steel in her eyes. She'd spotted Darius early, tall, broad, his vest straining against a gut built on steak and swagger. He rolled in with an entourage, shaking hands like he owned the damn city. Rico's stomach twisted when Darius sauntered over, drawn by the smell. Up close, the guy was all polish and menace, gold chain glinting, cologne strong enough to choke a horse. He grabbed a plate, eyeing the chicken like it was a challenge. "Jackson, right?" Darius said, voice smooth as oil. "Heard you used to be somebody. This better be good." Rico forced a nod, jaw tight. "Try it." Darius took a bite, chewing slow, his face unreadable. Then his eyes widened just a flicker and he grinned. "Well, damn, that's a hell of a bird. You ever think about cooking for real money again?" "Thought about it," Rico said, keeping his tone flat, hands steady as he plated another. "Things happen." Darius laughed, a low rumble, and leaned in closer, his breath hot with bourbon. "Yeah, they do. Like that fire at your spot. Shame, huh? But sometimes you gotta burn shit down to build something bigger. Worked out for me." Rico's pulse hammered, his grip tightening on the tongs. He glanced at Lena, who'd edged closer, pretending to snap pics of the food. Her eyes met his. She heard it. Darius kept talking, oblivious, bragging about his latest high-rise deal, each word dripping with arrogance. Lena's hand slipped into her clutch, the recorder rolling. The room spun for a second, the chatter fading to a dull roar in Rico's ears. This was it, the slip. Darius King, caught on tape, admitting he'd torched Soulfire. Rico's hands shook as he handed over another plate, the high crashing through him like a wave. They had him. They freaking had him. Lena flashed him a quick nod, slipping back into the crowd, her dress swishing like a victory flag. Darius wandered off, still chewing, still clueless. Rico exhaled, the kitchen heat wrapping around him like a hug. For the first time in years, he felt alive, really alive. But alive didn't mean safe. Not yet. The high from the Feed the Future gig didn't last long. Rico crashed hard that night, sprawled on the cot in Mama D's diner back room, the taste of victory still buzzing on his tongue like the cayenne in his glaze. He'd done it. Cooked like the old days, watched Darius King choke on his own words, and handed Lena the key to bury the bastard. The kitchen heat, the clink of plates, the way Lena's eyes flashed "We got him." It had felt like Soulfire all over again. But when his phone buzzed at 3 a.m., and the screen lighting up the dark with Lena's name, that buzz turned sour fast. "Rico, it's fucked," she said the second he picked up, her voice tight, ragged, like she'd been pacing for hours. "The recorder, it's trash. The ballroom was too damn loud. All I've got is static and some garbled bullshit. You can't even hear him." He sat up, the cot creaking under his weight, sleep evaporating like steam off a skillet. "What? You said you had it. I saw you. I thought I did," she snapped, cutting him off. "I played it back at my place. Nothing. Just crowd noise and some asshole laughing about caviar. We're screwed." Rico's chest went tight, a fist squeezing his ribs. He swung his legs off the cot, bare feet hitting the cold linoleum, the diner's stale air pressing in. "You're telling me I stuck my neck out, cooked my ass off, stood 2 feet from that snake? For nothing? You said you had this, Lena." "I know what I said." Her voice cracked, sharp and desperate. "I messed up, okay? I'm not a tech wizard. I thought the mic would pick it up. It didn't. Yell at me later. We've got to figure this out." "Figure it out?" He was on his feet now, pacing the tiny room, the walls closing in like a trap. "You dragged me into this, promising some big win, and now you're saying it's gone. What's next, huh? Darius finds out and burns this place down too." She went quiet for a second, just her breathing crackling through the line. Then softer. "I'm sorry, Rico. I thought we had him." "Sorry don't fix this," he growled, slamming his fist into the fridge door. The dent echoed in the silence, a dull thud that matched the ache in his knuckles. He hung up, tossing the phone onto the cot, and sank down, head in his hands. The spark from earlier was gone, snuffed out like a match in the rain. He'd trusted her, stupidly, blindly, and now he was back at square one, with nothing but a target on his back. Lena didn't let it drop. She showed up at the diner the next afternoon, her denim jacket slung over one shoulder, eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept either. The lunch rush, 3 truckers and a kid on a skateboard, was in full swing, the griddle hissing as Rico flipped burgers with a scowl that could have curdled milk. She slid onto a stool, ignoring the go-away vibes rolling off him in waves. "We need to talk," she said, voice low, barely audible over the sizzle. "Ain't nothing to say," he shot back, not looking up. He slapped a burger onto a bun, grease splattering the counter. "You blew it. End of story." She leaned forward, elbows on the counter, her notebook clutched tight. "I know you're pissed, Rico. You've got every right, but we're not done. We can still..." "Still what?" He spun around, spatula in hand, voice rising loud enough to make the kid on the skateboard flinch. "You got no tape, no proof, nothing. I'm not some pawn you can keep moving around your little chessboard, Lena. I'm out." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't back off. "You think I wanted this? I've been up all night trying to salvage it. Called a guy who might clean up the audio, dug through my notes for anything else. I'm not quitting, Rico. You shouldn't either." He laughed, bitter and hollow, tossing the spatula into the sink with a clang. "You don't get it, do you? I quit 3 years ago when my life went up in flames. I was dumb enough to let you pull me back in, and look where it got me. Screwed again." That's when she snapped. She slammed her notebook down, pages fluttering, and stood up, her small frame vibrating with fury. "You want to wallow in this dump forever, fine. But don't act like I'm the bad guy here. I'm fighting for you, for us. You're just too damn stubborn to see it." "Fighting for me?" Rico stepped closer, towering over her, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "You wrote that article, didn't you? After the fire. Rico Jackson, arrogant chef, crashes and burns. Called me a washed-up joke. Don't pretend this is about me. It's about your damn byline." Lena froze, her face paling like he'd slapped her. The diner went dead quiet, the truckers staring, the kid's skateboard clattering to a stop. She opened her mouth, then closed it, guilt flickering in her eyes. I was green, Rico. Broke. My editor pushed me to spin it hard. I didn't know you then. Didn't stop you from cashing the check, he said, voice cold as the ice in the freezer. He turned back to the grill, flipping a burger he didn't care about, the sizzle filling the silence. Get out, Lena, we're done. She didn't move for a long beat, just stood there, breathing hard. Then she grabbed her notebook, stuffed it into her bag, and stormed out, the bell jangling like a gunshot. Rico watched her go through the streaked window, her figure blurring into the gray afternoon, and felt something twist in his gut. Not regret. Not yet. Just a hollow ache where that spark used to be. He should have known it wouldn't end there. 2 nights later, Rico was scrubbing the griddle after close, the diner dark except for a flickering bulb over the counter, when his phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from an unknown number. You and your girl better keep quiet. Next time it's not just a warning. His blood ran cold, hands freezing mid-scrub. He glanced out the window, nothing but shadows and the hum of the highway, but the threat hung heavy, real as the grease stains on his apron. He locked the door, double-checking the deadbolt, and sank onto a stool, the phone trembling in his grip. Darius knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Lena's plan had poked the bear, and now the claws were out. He thought about calling her, warning her, but the sting of her betrayal, the article, the failed tape, stopped him cold. She dug this hole, let her climb out. Except sleep didn't come that night. He lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling, the text replaying like a bad loop. Next time, it's not just a warning. Darius wasn't bluffing. He'd burned soul fire to the ground, hadn't he? What was a diner or a nosy reporter to a guy like that? Rico's mind churned, flipping between anger and a gnawing fear he wouldn't name. Lena was a pain in the ass, sure, but she didn't deserve whatever Darius had coming. By morning, he was a wreck. Eyes bloodshot, hands shaky as he brewed coffee that tasted like tar. The diner felt smaller, the walls tighter, like a cage he'd built himself. He'd told Lena he was out, but out wasn't an option anymore. Darius had made it personal, and deep down, under the rage and the hurt, Rico knew one thing. He couldn't let that bastard win again. He grabbed his phone, thumb hovering over Lena's number. He didn't trust her, not fully, but he needed her. They were in this mess together, whether he liked it or not. The call rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. "Lena," he said, voice rough as sandpaper. "We've got a problem. Call me back." He hung up, the silence pressing in, and stared at the griddle. The fight wasn't over. It was just getting started. Rico didn't sleep after leaving that voicemail for Lena. The diner felt like a coffin that night, the air stale and heavy, the hum of the highway outside a constant reminder of how close trouble was. He'd scrubbed the griddle twice, more out of habit than need, the steel gleaming under the flickering bulb like it was mocking him. Darius's text, "Next time, it's not just a warning," looped in his head, each word a jab to the gut. He'd told Lena he was done, but done wasn't an option when a guy like Darius King had you in his sights. By dawn, his coffee was cold, his hands were raw, and Lena still hadn't called back. He didn't know if she was ignoring him or if something worse had happened. Then, the world kicked him awake. Around 2 a.m., a crash shattered the quiet. Glass exploding inward, the diner's front window raining shards across the counter. Rico bolted upright from the cot, heart slamming against his ribs, and stumbled into the main room. The air stank of spray paint, sharp and chemical, cutting through the usual grease haze. Chairs were flipped, a table smashed, and scrawled across the wall in dripping red letters, "I'm Mom." A sloppy threat, but the message was clear enough. He stepped over the wreckage, glass crunching under his boots, and saw a brick lying in the middle of the floor, a note taped to it. "Last chance, Jackson." His hands shook as he ripped the note free, the paper crinkling in his grip. Darius wasn't playing anymore. This was a gut punch, a promise of worse to come. Rico's eyes darted to the dark outside, the highway stretching into shadows. No sirens, no witnesses, just him and a busted-up diner that wasn't even worth the fight. He sank onto a stool, the note crumpling in his fist, and for a second he almost gave up. Almost. But then he saw it. A glint under the counter, half buried in the glass. An old leather-bound notebook, one he hadn't touched since Soulfire. It must have fallen out of a box he'd stashed back there years ago. He grabbed it, hands steadying as he flipped it open. Pages of recipes, his recipes, spilled out, stained with grease and ink. Cornbread with a honey drip, collards simmered low, that damn chicken glaze that had won him everything. But tucked in the back, loose and yellowed, was something else. A receipt. Not for spices or stock, but for a consulting fee dated a week before the fire. Paid to a name he didn't recognize, T. Rollins, and signed by none other than Darius King. Rico's breath caught, the pieces clicking like a lock snapping open. This wasn't just a hunch anymore. This was proof, hard and cold. Darius hadn't just bragged about burning Soulfire. He'd paid someone to do it. Rico's mind raced, the diner's wreckage fading as he clutched the receipt. Lena had been right all along. And now, with her radio silence, he had a sinking feeling she was in deeper shit than he was. He didn't think twice. He grabbed his keys, stuffed the notebook and receipt into his hoodie, and bolted out the back door, the Chevy coughing to life in the gravel lot. Lena lived in a rundown apartment off Abernathy Boulevard. He'd dropped her there once after a late-night planning session, her teasing him about his grandpa car still ringing in his ears. If Darius's goons had hit the diner, she was next. He didn't care about the fight, the article, the broken trust. Not now. He just needed her alive. The drive was a blur. Atlanta's streets slick with leftover rain. The Chevy's wipers squeaking against the windshield. Lena's building was a squat, peeling box. The kind of place where the landlord didn't bother fixing the busted streetlights. Rico parked crooked, killed the engine, and jogged up the stairs, his boots thudding on the warped wood. Her apartment was 3B, third floor, corner unit, a flickering bulb buzzing over the door. He pounded on it, the sound echoing down the empty hall. "Lena, open up! It's Rico!" No answer. He knocked again, harder, the door rattling in its frame. "Come on, don't do this." "I know you're pissed, but we've got trouble." Still nothing. His stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling his neck. He tried the knob, locked. Then he heard it. A faint shuffle inside, like someone moving fast. He didn't wait. He reared back and slammed his shoulder into the door, wood splintering as it gave way. He stumbled in, the air hitting him with a mix of coffee and damp carpet. Lena was there, crouched by the window, her hoodie pulled tight around her, eyes wide and wild. Papers were strewn across the floor. Her notes, photos, a laptop glowing with some audio software. She whipped around, a kitchen knife in her hand, and froze when she saw him. "Rico? What the hell?" Her voice was shaky, but she lowered the knife, her shoulders slumping. "You scared the shit out of me." "They hit the diner," he said, stepping over the mess, his breath ragged. "Broke the window, trashed it. Left a note, last chance." "You okay?" She nodded, but her hands were trembling, the knife clattering onto the table. "Yeah, I heard something outside an hour ago. Footsteps, maybe a car. Been freaking out since." She pointed to the window where the blinds were cracked, showing a sliver of the dark street below. "I thought they'd come here first." Rico crossed the room, peering out. Nothing moved, just shadows and the glint of wet pavement. He turned back to her, the notebook heavy in his pocket. "They're not messing around, Lena. Darius knows we're on to him." She sank onto the couch, running a hand through her curls, her face pale under the dim light. "I should have known the recorder wouldn't cut it. I screwed us both." "Stop," he said, sharper than he meant. He pulled the notebook out, flipping to the receipt, and shoved it into her hands. "Found this in the diner. From Soulfire, before the fire. Darius paid some guy, Rollins. It's not the tape, but it's something." Lena's eyes scanned the paper, widening as she read. "Holy shit, Rico. This ties him to it. A paper trail." She looked up, a spark flickering back into her gaze. "You broke into my place for this?" "Didn't have time to knock pretty," he said, a faint grin tugging at his lips despite everything. "Figured you'd want to see it before we're both toast." She laughed, a small, shaky sound, and set the receipt down, her fingers tapping the table like they always did when she was thinking. Okay, this changes things. It's not enough to nail him yet. Cops will say it's circumstantial, but it's a start. We need more." "We?" Rico raised an eyebrow, leaning against the wall. "Thought I was out, huh? You wrote me off as a washed-up joke." She winced, looking away, her voice dropping. "I was wrong, Rico. That article. I was 24, broke, desperate for a gig. I didn't know you, just the story they wanted. I'm sorry." He studied her, the apology hanging between them like smoke. Part of him wanted to stay mad, let it fester, keep the wall up. But the trash diner, the receipt, the knife in her hand, it all said she was in this as deep as he was. "Yeah, well," he muttered, rubbing his jaw. "Guess we're both dumbasses now." She smirked, the tension easing a hair. "Guess so. Partners." "Till Darius is done," he said, nodding. "Then we'll see." "Fair." She stood, grabbing her laptop. "We've got 2 moves. Take this to the cops, play it safe or go harder. Dig up this Rollins guy, get the full story. What's your call? Rico thought about it, the diner's wreckage flashing in his mind, the feel of that old notebook in his hands. Safe wasn't his style, not anymore. Rollins, he said, voice firm. Cops'll sit on it till we're dead. We end this ourselves. Lena nodded, a slow grin spreading. West End hustle, right? Let's burn him down. They spent the next hour piecing it together, Lena cross-referencing names in her notes, Rico brewing coffee that didn't taste like tar for once. The receipt was their lifeline, a crack in Darius's armor. Outside, the rain picked up again, drumming the windows like it was cheering them on. Rico didn't know if they'd win, but for the first time in years, he wasn't running. He was fighting. The plan sounded solid in Lena's cramped apartment, fueled by bad coffee and a shared itch for payback. It was mid-October now, Atlanta's humidity giving way to a crisp bite in the air, the kind that made you feel alive or reckless. Rico and Lena had spent days digging into the receipt, tracking down T. Rollins through Lena's sketchy contacts. Old West End hustlers who knew every shadow in the city. Turned out Rollins was Tommy Rollins, a low-life arsonist with a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt, last seen working odd jobs for Darius King's crew. The goal? Get Tommy on record, link him to the Soulfire fire, and tie it all back to Darius. Simple, right? Wrong. They'd settled on a high-stakes play. Crash a real estate auction in Buckhead, where Darius was set to bid on a downtown lot. Lena had snagged passes by sweet-talking a source at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, spinning a story about a chef's comeback piece. Rico would pose as a caterer, Lena as a server, close enough to plant a hidden camera near Darius and catch him with Tommy. The receipt was their ace, but they needed more to bury him. It was a long shot, but long shots were all they had left. The night of the auction, the Buckhead Ritz-Carlton glittered like a damn palace, crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling, marble floors so shiny Rico could see his scowl reflected back. The crowd was pure money. Suits with Rolexes, women in heels that clicked like gunfire, the air thick with cigar smoke and entitlement. Rico stood at a prep station in the ballroom's corner, borrowed chef's whites straining across his shoulders, a tray of mini chicken sliders in front of him, honey-glazed, bite-sized, a tease of what he used to be. He'd rigged a tiny camera into the tray's base, angled to catch the head table where Darius would sit. Lena moved through the room in a black server's uniform, tray of champagne flutes balanced like she'd been born to it, her curls pinned up tight. She flashed him a quick grin, "We got this," and disappeared into the swarm. Rico's hands moved on autopilot, plating sliders while his eyes tracked Darius. The man rolled in late, all swagger and teeth, his gold chain glinting under the lights. Tommy Rollins trailed him, short, wiry, with a weasel face and a nervous twitch, like he knew he didn't belong. They settled at the head table, Darius barking orders at a lackey while Tommy fidgeted with a napkin. Rico adjusted the tray, the camera whirring softly, and muttered under his breath, "Come on, you bastard. Say something." Lena worked her way closer, offering champagne with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She lingered near Darius, refilling his glass, her recorder tucked into her apron pocket. Rico caught snippets. Darius bragging about clearing out the trash to build his empire, Tommy nodding like a bobblehead. It wasn't a confession, not yet. But it was close. Rico's pulse kicked up, sweat beading under his collar. They were in the lion's den, and the lion was hungry. Then it all went to hell. A beefy guy in a cheap suit, Darius's muscle, no doubt, sidled up to Rico's station, eyeing the sliders with a smirk. "You're that chef, huh? Jackson? Thought you burned out." He grabbed a slider, took a bite, and froze, his eyes narrowing. "Wait a damn minute. I know you." Rico's stomach dropped, but he kept his cool, wiping his hands on a towel. "Yeah? Good for you. Want another?" The guy didn't laugh. He leaned in, voice low and mean. "Saw you at that charity thing. Boss don't like loose ends." Before Rico could react, the guy's hand shot out, knocking the tray to the floor. The camera clattered free, its red light blinking like a damn beacon. The room didn't stop, too busy with bids and booze, but Darius's head snapped up, his gaze locking onto Rico across the crowd. "Shit," Rico hissed, bending to grab the camera, but the muscle was faster. He stomped it under his boot, plastic crunching, and hauled Rico up by the collar. "You're done, pal." Lena saw it go down. She dropped her tray, glass shattering, champagne splashing, and bolted toward him, shoving through the crowd. "Rico, run!" she yelled, but it was too late. The muscle dragged him toward a side hall, Darius barking something at Tommy, who scurried after them like a rat. Lena tried to follow, but another goon cut her off, grabbing her arm. She twisted free, snagging the recorder from her pocket, and sprinted for the exit, her breath ragged. She had to get out, get the footage, warn someone, anything. Rico fought, slamming an elbow into the guy's gut, but the hall was a blur of fists and grunts. He hit the floor hard, tasting blood, and then it was lights out. He came to in a warehouse, the air thick with oil and rust, a single bulb swinging overhead like a lazy pendulum. His hands were zip-tied behind him, wrists raw, and his jaw throbbed where a fist had landed. Darius loomed in front of him, tie loosened, that gold chain dangling like a noose. Tommy hovered in the background, twitchy as ever, a gas can in his hands, sloshing ominously. "Thought you were smart, huh?" Darius said, voice smooth but edged with venom. He crouched, eye level with Rico, his breath hot with whiskey. "You and that little reporter bitch, poking around my business like you're some kind of heroes. You know what happens to heroes, Jackson?" Rico spat blood onto the concrete, glaring up. "Same thing that happened to my restaurant, I guess. You gonna burn me too?" Darius laughed, a deep, ugly sound that echoed off the walls. "Oh, I like you. Got balls. Shame you didn't just stay in your hole." He stood, nodding to Tommy. "Light it up. Make it quick." Tommy hesitated, eyes darting to Rico, then back to Darius. "Boss, you sure? Cops might—" "Move," Darius snapped, and Tommy fumbled with the can, splashing gas in a sloppy arc. The fumes hit Rico like a punch, sharp and dizzying, his heart hammering as the reality sank in. This was it, soul fire all over again. But this time, he wouldn't walk away. Back at the Ritz, Lena stumbled into the parking lot, rain pelting her face, the recorder clutched tight. She'd made it out, barely, her arm bruised where the goon had grabbed her. She ducked behind a dumpster, hand shaking as she played the footage. Darius's voice crackled through, clearing out the trash. But it cut off, garbled, no mention of Soulfire or Tommy. Useless. She slammed the recorder against the metal, tears mixing with the rain. Rico was gone, taken, and she had nothing to save him. She sank to the wet asphalt, the auction's muffled noise fading behind her. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I'm so damn sorry." The plan had been hers, her push, her hustle, and now Rico was paying for it. She'd lost him, just like she'd lost everything else she'd ever chased. The recorder slipped from her hands, clattering into a puddle, and for the first time in years, Lena Carter felt small. Inside the warehouse, Rico stared at the gas pooling around him, Tommy's lighter flicking in the dark. He didn't beg, wouldn't give Darius the satisfaction, but his mind flashed to the diner, to Lena's grin, to the life he'd almost clawed back. He'd been so close, so damn close. The flame sparked. The warehouse stank of gasoline and fear, the fumes curling into Rico's lungs as Tommy Rollins fumbled with the lighter, its tiny flame dancing like a devil in the dark. Rico's wrists burned against the zip ties, his jaw clenched tight, blood dripping from his lip onto the concrete. Darius King stood over him, a shadow in a loosened tie, his gold chain glinting like a taunt. The flame flickered closer, Tommy's shaky hand trembling under Darius's glare, and Rico braced himself. This was it. Soulfire Redux, but no headlines this time. Just a quiet end in a nowhere hole. Then the door crashed open. A figure burst in, small, soaked, wild curls flying as Lena Carter charged through, a fire extinguisher in her hands. She didn't hesitate, aimed the nozzle and sprayed, white foam blasting Tommy square in the face. He yelped, dropping the lighter, the flame snuffing out as it hit the wet floor. Darius spun, roaring, "What the hell?" But Lena swung the extinguisher like a bat, catching him in the gut. He doubled over, gasping, and she bolted to Rico, yanking a pocket knife from her jeans to slice the ties. "Move!" she shouted, hauling him up, her voice raw with panic. Rico stumbled to his feet, legs shaky, the gas fumes dizzying him as they ran for the door. Tommy scrambled after them, coughing through the foam, but Darius was already up, barking orders into a phone. "Get him! Now!" They hit the night air hard, rain pelting their faces, the warehouse lot a maze of rusted barrels and puddles. Lena dragged Rico toward her beat-up Honda, parked crooked near a chain-link fence. Headlights flared behind them. Darius's goons, tires screeching as a black SUV peeled out. Rico dove into the passenger seat, Lena slamming the gas before her door was even shut. The car lurched, fishtailing on the slick gravel, and they tore off into the dark, the SUV's lights shrinking in the rear view. Rico's chest heaved, adrenaline pumping as he gripped the dash. "How'd you find me?" Lena's hands shook on the wheel, her eyes locked on the road. Drove around like a maniac after the auction. Saw their car heading east. Guessed they'd take you somewhere quiet. Got lucky. She glanced at him, her face pale but fierce. "Thought I'd lost you, Rico." He didn't answer, just nodded, the weight of it sinking in. She'd come back. After everything, she'd come back. The car rattled down a back road, rain drumming the roof, and for a minute, they just breathed, alive against all odds. They holed up at Mama D's diner, the busted window boarded up with plywood Rico had scavenged from the lot. The place was a wreck. Glass still glinted in the corners, the spray-painted "I am Mom" glaring from the wall. But it was theirs. Lena slumped at the counter, her hoodie dripping, while Rico brewed coffee, the familiar hiss of the pot grounding him. His hands still shook, the gas smell clinging to his clothes, but he was here, alive. "We're screwed," Lena said, voice flat, staring at the recorder she'd pulled from her pocket. Got nothing from the auction. Same static crap. They'll come for us again. Rico set a mug in front of her, black and steaming, and leaned against the counter. Maybe. But we're not dead yet. He pulled the crumpled receipt from his hoodie, smoothing it out. Still got this. Darius paid Tommy to burn Soulfire. It's something. Not enough, she muttered, rubbing her eyes. Cops'll laugh at it. Consulting fee could mean anything. We need a witness, a smoking gun. He nodded, sipping his own coffee, the bitterness sharp on his tongue. Tommy's the key. He was scared shitless back there. Might crack if we push him. Lena's head snapped up, a spark flickering. You think he'd flip? Guy like that? Yeah, Darius owns him, but he's no soldier. We find him, we break him. She grinned, faint but real. West End hustle, huh? Damn right, he said, matching her grin. But we need help, someone who knows more than we do. That's when the bell jangled, soft, hesitant, and Mama D herself shuffled in. She was a stout woman, gray braids tucked under a scarf, her apron smudged with flour from some late-night baking. She'd owned the diner for decades, renting it to Rico after Soulfire tanked, never asking questions. She stopped short, eyeing the mess, then them. Y'all look like hell, she said, voice warm but firm. What's this nonsense I hear about Darius King? Rico froze, exchanging a look with Lena. How'd you... Boy, I've been in West End since before you were born. Mama D cut in, hobbling to a stool. Heard his goons smashed my place up. Figured it's tied to that fire of yours. She reached into her apron, pulling out a faded Polaroid, and slid it across the counter. Found this in the old security cam box, back when I had one that worked. The photo was grainy, time-stamped 3 years ago. Tommy Rollins, younger and twitchier, pouring gas outside Soulfire's back door, a shadow in a gold chain watching from a car. Rico's breath caught, his hands gripping the counter. That's him. That's Darius. Lena snatched the photo, eyes wide. Mama D, you're a damn legend. This is it. With the receipt, it's a slam dunk. Mama D chuckled, patting Lena's hand. Knew you two were trouble. Good trouble. I saw Tommy that night. Didn't say nothing 'cause I didn't want to die. But you're family now. Use it. Rico stared at the photo, the pieces locking into place. Mama D had been their ace all along, a quiet witness, holding the truth like a secret recipe. He looked at Lena, her grin spreading, and felt something shift. Not just survival, justice. They didn't go to the cops, not yet. Lena had a better play. She wrote the story overnight, her laptop glowing in the diner's dim light, fingers flying as she wove the receipt, the photo, and their hellish night into a bombshell. By dawn, she posted it to a local news blog. Atlanta's real estate king, arson, threats, and a chef's revenge, and sent it viral with a burner account. She live-streamed from her phone, rain streaking the diner's busted window behind her, holding up the Polaroid for the world to see. Darius King burned Rico Jackson's dream, she said, voice steady despite the exhaustion. He tried to burn us too. This ends now. The post blew up, retweets, shares, comments flooding in. By noon, the cops were at Darius's door, tipped off by the online storm. Tommy cracked fast, spilling everything to save his own skin. Dates, payments, Darius's orders. The king fell hard, arrested in his Buckhead penthouse, his gold chain clinking as they cuffed him. Rico watched it unfold on Lena's phone, the diner quiet except for the drip of a leaky faucet. "We did it," he said, voice low, like he couldn't believe it. "We did?" Lena echoed, leaning against him, her shoulder warm against his. "Partners?" "Partners," he said, a real smile breaking through for the first time in years. A year later, Soulfire rose again, not in Midtown, but in West End, a small joint with red brick walls and a neon sign that glowed steady. Rico ran the kitchen, plating chicken and collards for a crowd that mixed locals with foodies, Mama D's cornbread a staple on the menu. Lena wrote freelance, her Pulitzer nomination for the Darius story framed behind the counter, but she spent most nights at a corner table, scribbling notes and stealing fries. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting gold through the windows, a kid, maybe 16, apron tied loose, approached them, eyes wide. "You're Rico, right? And Lena? Read your story in school. Got me thinking I could cook too." Rico handed him a slider, still hot from the fryer. "You can. Just don't let nobody burn your dreams down." Lena tossed him a napkin with a grin. "And write it down, kid. Stories save you." The kid nodded, biting into the slider, and walked off, a spark in his step. Rico and Lena sat there, rain tapping the glass, a soft echo of the storm that had started it all. They'd lost everything once, but from the ashes, they'd built something real. Not just a restaurant, not just a headline, a life. Sometimes, the best things rise when the fire's done burning.